I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games. A minus 31 free throw discrepancy. And I might be able to understand it if we were just chucking threes, but we're not. We're attacking the rim. And the disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable. So it's disappointing.
The Indiana Fever versus the Las Vegas Aces isn't just a playoff series. It's a heist unfolding in plain sight. Indiana shocked the world by stealing Game 1 in Vegas. But from that moment on, the narrative flipped. The Aces didn't claw their way back with superior talent or smart adjustments. They had the refs at their backs. Whistles rained down so lopsided the games stopped resembling basketball. Stephanie White refused to bite her tongue. In one of the most emotional post-game interviews of her career, she called for nothing less than a full-blown league investigation into the state of WNBA officiating. And she wasn't alone. Fans inside Gainbridge saw it. Social media exploded with proof. The box score told the same story. The Aces weren't out playing Indiana. They were being handed wins. The real tragedy? Those phantom whistles buried the grit, resilience, and unshakable heart the Fever brought every single night. Do you think the WNBA will clean up this mess?
Disappointing, that it doesn't go both ways or hasn't gone both ways. But we also can't allow that to consume us, right? Like, we've got to be able to play through that. We've got to be able to control the things that we can control.
Let's be clear. This wasn't Indiana's first time battling two opponents. The Aces in front of them and the officials with whistles. From the jump, the tilt in favoritism was impossible to ignore. Game 1 set the tone. Vegas struggled to find rhythm, so the free throw line became their lifeline. Meanwhile, Indiana's physical defense, clean body-ups and hard contests, somehow morphed into foul trouble whenever the refs decided. The Aces could throw elbows with impunity, yet the Fever were penalized for little more than breathing too close. This wasn't subtle bias. It was glaring, loud, and obvious to anyone watching.
So why don't you think you were able to find any flow? And when that was the case, what are you trying to do to jumpstart things, maybe on the defense?
Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. And when they're at the free throw line, we can't get up and down the floor. And that's a challenge. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively. We didn't counter that with our off-ball actions or with our back cuts. So they took us out of our comfort zone. I mean, offense is about rhythm, it's about timing, it's about spacing. We allowed them to do that, and they kept us from doing it.
By Game 2, the bias was impossible to ignore. Whistles didn't just show up, they dictated the tempo, breaking Indiana's rhythm over and over. By Game 3, the officiating had built a wall the Fever simply couldn't climb. The defining moment came in the third quarter. Aaliyah Boston, the anchor, tried to challenge a foul on Jackie Young. Stephanie White immediately signaled for review. The bench stood ready, fans on edge. But the officials? They acted like nothing happened, completely ignoring it. Seconds later, Chelsea Gray drilled a three, and just like that, momentum flipped. The Fever's effort wiped away in an instant.
Angel Wilson is 1 for 12 as the foul is called on Boston, and that will be number 2 on Aaliyah Boston.
You saw Indiana picking up full court pressure defensively. If you're Aaliyah Boston, that's the one spot on the floor you do not want to get a foul call.
And Stephanie White is trying to challenge it and did not call the timeout in time. Gray in the corner.
Indiana's hard-earned lead wasn't lost to Vegas's execution. It was stolen by a call the refs refused to even review. The Gainbridge crowd erupted, cheers flipping into boos and outrage. Within minutes, clips of the sequence flooded social media, with fans and analysts circling that exact moment as evidence of rigging. And it wasn't just about one ignored review. Breakdowns highlighted a disturbing pattern, flops, elbows, and cheap shots from the Aces that somehow vanished from the officials' radar, while every bit of Fever contact drew a whistle.
2-minute recap from last night. So A'ja Wilson pushes Howard in the back. Howard pushes her in the back. It's a foul on Howard. Look at this. Aaliyah Boston gets totally fouled by Melissa Smith. Like, it's obvious, but no call. Then A'ja Wilson gets the call for not half as much. And then Alyssa Smith gets the call for not even getting touched. Here's a replay just to prove it to you. Yep, then
That's when it stopped looking like oversight and started reeking of an agenda. The tape tells the story. Wilson plowed through Boston like a fullback, and play continued. Fever defenders hit the floor with no calls, while the slightest contact from Indiana was whistled like a felony. This wasn't Vegas outclassing Indiana with skill. It was referees supplying lifelines, bailing the aces out until the scoreboard tilted their way, and the outcome felt manufactured, not earned.
Followed up by Lexi Holt getting called for the foul.
I thought it was egregious, honestly. I mean, I thought it was obvious. I felt like AB got one, had one going to the rim. They're in rotation, and then Lexi's, I felt like equally. We talk about, coming into the path, and it was an offensive player veering into the defensive player.
But this is where Indiana showed they were built differently. Lesser teams would have sulked, complained about the officiating, and folded. The Fever didn't. And the face of that defiance was Lexi Hull. Think about it. How often do you see a player who probably shouldn't even be on the court nearly swing the momentum of an entire playoff game? That's what Hull delivered. After aggravating her back in Game 1, she entered each matchup listed as questionable. Her warm-ups were stiff, her movements limited, and expectations were minimal. Most assumed she'd log a few filler minutes just to give teammates a breather. Instead, Hull turned those minutes into a statement. She played with grit, fire, and resilience, crafting the kind of performance that fans will remember long after this playoff series is over.
You have drawn the most offensive foul in the W this year, including the playoff. How are you able to do that?
Just trying to defend as hard as I can, and there's only certain screens you're allowed to set, so just trying to trail them, and that's all I can really say.
16 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. Lexi Hull stuffed the stat sheet while shooting an efficient 6 of 10. Her 3 triples were more than shots. They were lifelines, jolting Indiana back whenever Vegas threatened to surge. Those threes tied her with a Fever playoff record across 2 games, 8 total. An achievement no one imagined from a player gutting it out through back pain. And her 16 points, a new career playoff high, came right in the middle of playoff chaos.
Boston has the mismatch on Lloyd. Help comes. Kick out. Oh, will fire. And hit from 3. His last 2 positions inside from Indiana. Smith tied up by Hull. And a jump ball between Smith and Hull.
What made Lexi Hull's night unforgettable wasn't the box score. It was the way she earned every number on it. Every trip down the floor was a fight. Loose balls became collisions, rebounds turned into scrums, and still, she never blinked. Cameras caught her wincing through pain, but she kept battling, boxing out players taller and fresher, diving across the hardwood to keep possessions alive. And somehow, after those bruising exchanges, she'd rise and bury threes on the other end. Her plays weren't just points on scoreboard. They were jolts of energy, keeping Indiana alive whenever whistles and officiating tried to suffocate their rhythm.
On the left side of the floor, just a clear out, letting Jackie Young go to work.
Jackie Young with 17 points. Boston to the corner. Hull, catch, fire, and hit. Rec call. Evans dishes. Ray whips a pass inside. What a denial from Lexi Hull.
The Hull able to save the play.
12-point game, a little under 2.5 to go. Hull hits Indiana's first field goal of the quarter.
That's why the crowd rallied behind her. Gamebridge fans weren't fooled. They saw the truth. A player pushing through pain because her team had no choice but to lean on her. Every rebound, every jumper reignited the arena. Even as whistles tried to drain the energy, Hull's fight became the heartbeat of Indiana's defiance.
Back to Hull, wide open 3 is good.
The floor that she wants, doesn't it?
It does. Mitchell, connect. Here's Mitchell. Mitchell, one more. You bet.
And that's exactly what makes the night feel so bitter. While Lexi Hull delivered the best playoff performance of her career, the conversation wasn't centered on her. It wasn't about the 16 points she scored or the 10 rebounds she ripped down despite obvious pain. It was about the referees, whose whistles tilted the game and hijacked the narrative. The spotlight that should have honored her resilience instead got buried under controversy. Maybe that's the truest metaphor for this Fever team. Underdogs dismissed, constantly shoved to the side, yet still refusing to fold. On one end, Hull threw herself into every play, dragging her battered body across the court to keep Indiana alive. On the other, Aya Wilson, an MVP candidate and face of the league, vanished when it mattered most, her presence propped up by whistles that gifted her opportunities Indiana was denied. That contrast told the story better than any box score. One team earning everything through grit, the other being lifted by officials protecting the Aces brand instead of respecting the Fever's fight.
Offensive foul, practically a football check, and the Aces score. So now the Aces cut it to 2, and then A'ja Wilson sets an illegal screen, and they tied things up. And then Lexi Hall gets called for a foul for doing nothing when they just had 2 illegal screens they didn't call. All right, so this is fair. Same thing happens on the other side, but they don't call a foul for Kelsey Mitchell. So Leah Boston gets called for this foul for getting her arm grabbed. But Stephanie White can't challenge. They won't let her. That's the second time this game they didn't let her have her challenge. And then A'ja Wilson starts acting like a big baby.
Picture this. The league's reigning MVP, the supposed unstoppable force, going nearly 3 quarters without hitting a single shot. That was Aya Wilson in Game 3. She opened with a smooth three-pointer that hinted at dominance, but that moment turned out to be her only highlight of the half. By halftime, her line read an abysmal 1 for 11, the kind of shooting that would draw side eyes even for a rookie clinging to a roster spot. She crawled to a finish of just 6 makes on 20 attempts, totaling 13 points on 20 shots. Let's be clear, that isn't just off by her lofty standards, that's flat out unacceptable for any starter period. Rather than imposing herself in the paint and dictating tempo like her reputation suggests, Wilson drifted outward, settling for contested fadeaways and rushed mid-range attempts, visibly shaken by Aaliyah Boston's suffocating physical defense.
And here we go. She gets a foul call with a 3-point game for, I don't know why they called that foul, but it's the 3rd quarter and they want them to win. So here we go. Aces up by 3. They call another foul for A'ja Wilson that isn't a foul. All right, so then they call another foul on the Fever that isn't a foul. And then to end the game after it's out of control because the Fever had a 6-point lead, but they kept calling fouls, another foul for A'ja Wilson that's not a foul. Ball don't lie. A'ja missed 11 shots in a row during this game.